One was an open service broker for Cloud Foundry. One was a Kubernetes-friendly service wrapping container images. Both as different as could be, but trying to live together. Welcome to my talk on the odd couple, cross-platform services for Cloud Foundry and Kubernetes. The lifecycle of data stores is usually different from the app. Part of the reason I like open service brokers is it's got a clear separation of the data and the application. You'll update and replace your app more often than you'll update your data. Every app needs data services. We're getting to a hybrid cloud situation, and there's lots of choices. RDS, Cloud SQL, to name a few. It can be overwhelming for the developer if they have to learn all these standards, figure out projects and accounts, IMA keys, VPC and Terraform scripts. Sometimes it's nice just to have something built in, something that just works, something that's portable. Blacksmith wraps a BOSH and uses forges with scripts to deploy services. Blacksmith will deploy other BOSH releases. It is quite flexible to script up more BOSH releases to deploy. You can customize it to provide other services that may not be available yet. Inside the forges, there is an initialization script. So for RabbitMQ, we generate a username and a password. These get stored in the vault and merged into the manifest when BOSH creates the deployment. Later on, when Cloud Foundry wants to bind with the instance, we process a credentials.yaml file which explains how to generate the environmental variables needed by the application. We're using the Genesis system to deploy Blacksmith. So I'm just going to tell it I want to make a new Blacksmith. It's going to put all the secrets into our vault. I'm putting it into my Ivy development environment. We're going to enable all of the services. And now we just start filling out a few simple values. Just copy and paste this in. Blacksmith has finished deploying, so let's have a look. Here are the features and the services available. Our Cloud Foundry has currently no services. We're going to tell Blacksmith to register it. We're talking to our Cloud Foundry and enabling services. This is going to set up an alias for BOSH. Now we do have some commands to help with debugging. Have a look at the catalog. We look at Cloud Foundry. We have the same ones. Now we update the security groups to talk to our services. Let's start provisioning a database. And we can use our BOSH alias to watch it boot. Once Blacksmith is up and running, there is a web UI that the operators can use to see the state and log from all the instances booted. This makes maintaining Blacksmith easier. Blacksmith implements the Service Broker API. The forges provide the pieces needed for each step. The forge has an initialization script, which usually initializes all the secrets. We provide a YAML file in the forge for the bind phase. And the main manifest defines a catalog of all the services and plans you provide. By mapping these verbs to standard scripts and YAML files, we have a cookie-cutter way of defining new services. This gives you great flexibility with the services we already provide, plus the ability to create more services that may be specific to your needs. Tweed is the answer to, what if we wanted to use containers? We wanted a service broker that could build and provide arbitrary services, including common ones like Redis, MariaDB, and Postgres. The Tweed team took the lessons learned from Blacksmith and applied them to the container image instead of BOSH releases. Instead of forges, we have stencils. Tweed calls similar initialization scripts when it boots up a service instance. But instead of a BOSH release, it uses a standard Kubernetes deployment. So let's install it. We're going to clone the Tweed project into our directory. At this point, we are going to apply it. Well, actually, let's change the name of it so that it'll show up as a different service. In this case, I'm going to call it Container Postgres. We're just going to Q control apply it. Everything is created, and the pods are starting up. Since I'm using OpenShift, I'm going to expose the service, which is going to provide me a route and a handy little alias for operators to use. So now we can look at the catalog. We have Postgres, and we have a little script here that's going to register and enable the services. And at this point, we're already spinning up containers with services under Cloud Foundry, much faster than VMs. So let's have a quick peek at what its stencil looks like. So we have the credentials, parts for Kubernetes, lifecycle has bind, deprovision, provision, unbind. And the deployment is very simple container YAML. And the lifecycle is very simple bash scripting. A service broker that spins up services in containers with Open Service Broker. Most 12-factor apps require very little disk I/O. Many data services are limited by the IOPS available. Developers deploying databases with Helm charts are likely to find performance falls off a cliff after the third data service starts up. While Blacksmith uses VMs, which provide a range of customizable disk options provided by the IaaS, Kubernetes abstracts away the read-write once and read-write many styles. Red Hat's own documentation mentions storage must be considered and validated. Kubernetes abstracted storage may work well in small environments, but may not scale well without tuning and considering IOPS. Ceph, Rook, EBF, and NFS can perform well, but the larger the cluster, the more likely you will want to have dedicated storage for servers instead of shared. One of the advantages of service brokers such as Tweed is you can work with your IaaS team to define dedicated storage per plan. VMs are so 1999. So why would I want to connect Blacksmith with Kubernetes? Kubernetes can be more densely packed than VMs. This leads to the noisy neighbor problem again. By having your data services on VMs with Blacksmith instead of containers, you can separate out the concerns for storage and networking without having to give up the Kubernetes API. The magic behind this is the Kubernetes Service Catalog. In incubation since 2017, the Special Interest Group maintains the integration with the Open Service Brokers. To give us a command line option, they maintain the svcat CLI, which streamlines the operator's experience. Let's quickly set it up. We add the Service Catalog repo to Helm. We're going to use the 0.3 branch, which is a newer operator. It's a quick install. A quick note, there's already a pull request on the project for the deprecation warnings that the maintainers are reviewing. svcat marketplace, we have an empty marketplace. We take the credentials from our command line and we create a Kubernetes secret with it. Then we register our Blacksmith broker. Actually, we still need to wait a moment for the pods to come up. So let's check the pods, and then let's register it again. If we have a look now, we can already see the marketplace is populated. And now we can run a provision to create our own Redis. The svcat command allows us to review plans, provision, bind, the same as our Cloud Foundry CLI does. You saw how simple it was to get Blacksmith onto Kubernetes. If you are moving to a fully container platform, you can just update the command to register Tweed instead and have all your apps and services on containers. Like before, your operators can customize the plans to use the appropriate storage and enforce quotas to prevent abuse of resources. Since I don't think I need to demo installing Tweed, I thought I would show you another service broker. Blacksmith and Tweed provision dedicated databases. For development, testing, and small environments, shared databases make sense. Instead of trying to add it to a dedicated plan, why not create a service broker that can share a dedicated database? This is another advantage to the service broker model and API. And this is what Tinsmith is. Tinsmith is actually a nice example of how to write your own service broker in Go. So let's install Tinsmith. We're going to clone the repo, and all we need to do is cf push without a start, bind the service that we want Tinsmith to use. I'm going to change the name of the service again so it's a bit clearer when we look at the marketplace. Cloud Foundry compiles all our Go code. And we can have a look at it with our BOSS tool. Now we just register with the default password and enable the service. And we have shared databases in the marketplace. So we have Blacksmith for Cloud Foundry, Blacksmith for Kubernetes, Tweed for Cloud Foundry, Tweed for Kubernetes. If you can mirror your services between your platforms for your developers, you can simplify and standardize your documentation. This is very consistent for your developers. We have quite a few services now in the marketplace. Because this is multi-cloud, I did want to touch a little bit on migrating services. The recommended way of migrating services is to pause your app, put up a maintenance page, back up your app, restore to the new location, and point your app to the new data source. There is no simple answer to migrations. You may be moving to a different version of the software. The services may not be on the same clusters or platforms. Depending on the provisioner, you may not be able to reuse your credentials. And remember, if you don't have a backup, you have a cache. When you are migrating, I do recommend trying to put the script on your platform. Your platform already knows how to talk to your service, already has the firewall rules, and will have better network connectivity than your laptop with a VPN. The scripting will be unique depending on what you're migrating, so please consult your DBA. Your DBA can help ensure that your migrations are smooth. As we move to hybrid cloud, please remember your developers. Don't throw them into Helm charts. Support service brokers on all your clouds. Thank you. Hi, sorry, I had a bit of technical difficulties. So the question was, I love the open service broker, but I find the Kubernetes implementation is not as feature rich as the CF implementation. How do you cater for the differences like updating a service instance to use different service plans? svcat does not seem to implement this. Or the migrating of data services in CF, I can enable disable service brokers. So part of this is to try and get people to use service brokers in Kubernetes so that there is more interest. By making something feature complete in Cloud Foundry, there is more for us to latch onto. We have a couple tools like the BOSS tool for talking to the service broker directly, just for the IS team to work on. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm looking at, trying to write some more tools. It's just at one of the previous projects I worked at, they're using Helm charts to deploy services, and that did basically put all the burden of the services on the developer, application developer, and you kind of end up with similar problems. So by moving this to a service broker and improving the svcat tool or writing additional tooling, we should make something that's definitely more user-friendly, developer-friendly.